Kana ngoma yorira nato terera voda izira ngome nato pembera upenyu udukuduku mwanawe break a leg my friend kana ngoma yorira nato terera kana ngoma yorira nato terera voda izira ngome nato pembera upenyu udukuduku mwanawe break a leg my friend kana ngoma yorira nato terera life is a journey. Yeah, we are all traveling. Good wonder, here I have been traveling. Whole life is a journey. We are still traveling. Good body, no and I go. Yeah, we are all still traveling. Ngoma yorira nato terera iwe voda izira ngome nato pembera iwe upenyu udukuduku mwanawe break a leg my friend kana ngoma yorira nato terera iwe kana ngoma yorira nato terera iwe voda izira ngome nato pembera upenyu udukuduku mwanawe break a leg, my friend. Kana ngoma yorira nato terera I have been traveling. We're still all traveling. Yes, I have been traveling.
My name is Charles Oj. I'm the CEO of HYBA, a Pan-African innovation enterprise focused on delivering impact in Africa. And I'm really excited to be here, and also really excited about my colleagues that are, joining hands with me to, on this journey. My colleagues in Lagos, Nigeria, in Kenya, in East Africa, in Johannesburg, and also in Cape Town, and even outside the continent in London and Paris and the Netherlands. I would love to, talk to us about our purpose here in HYBA, and we're really very excited about using innovation to scale positive impact that brings real and lasting change for the African ecosystem. And as we look at Africa and seeing so many opportunities, we do see lots of challenges. These challenges are difficult, they are intractable, and our intent is to say, how do we bring prosperity for all? And you may ask, how can we do this? We do this in three ways, which we call our innovation missions around circular economy, inclusion, and also sustainable lives. Let me just take some time now and just talk about each of them. I mean, with the big theme around climate change, circular economy is something that we really push and drive here at HYBA. And it's really about accelerating Africa's transition towards adopting circular principles and actions which are relocalized, regenerative, and restorative by design. The next mission we look at is inclusion. And here we're really talking about not leaving anybody behind as Africa evolves into the development phase that it should do. And our mission here is to create opportunities that enable inclusive African societies for the benefit of many, especially women and youth. Sustainable life is really around improving the quality of life, whether it be education, whether it be health, whether it be helping for all Africans, wherever they may be. In bringing these missions to life, HYBA is offering diverse but integrated services. These services are consolidated into 3 big buckets. The first one is we show up as a venture builder, where we work with scale-ups and small businesses to really scale their impact on the continent. Our second role or service is as an innovation partner. And here we work with larger organizations like multinationals, governments, academia, investors, or even development agencies to see how we can co-create solutions that can then be scaled up in the marketplace. Our third service is, looking at being a systems enabler, where we solve, very complex and sophisticated problems in the market, whether it be unemployment or even poverty. How do we collectively bring our resources and capabilities and design using innovation and, if possible, ventures to really transmit solutions and impact for the continent? So we're really excited about our work at HYBA, and we're looking forward to partnering with you and talking with you as we transmit impact on the continent using innovation. Thank you.
Last night we touched the skies. I blended mushrooms like a fillet in my head. Ribs I had seen, we've been laughing all night. Drank till the last glass.
Okay, a very good morning to everybody who has joined the call this morning. My name is Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa. It is sometimes a mouthful for people to say, so for the benefit of making sure that we can get to know each other relatively easily, comfortably, you can just call me Zoya. It really is a pleasure to be here this morning, to be connecting with you. I don't know which parts of the world you represent, but it really is an absolute pleasure. And maybe just to kick us off, as people are coming in, let's get a sense of who's in this virtual room with us. And we're going to ask you to tell us, your name, as well as which country you are in or which part of the world you reside in, using the chat function. So as people are coming in, let's just get to know who's in the virtual room with us. Share your name, as well as the country that you are in, using the chat function. Let's get to know each other. And so while that's happening, of course, I'm Zoya, as I said, and I'm based here in Johannesburg, South Africa, a lady who's originally from the Eastern Cape, which is a province in South Africa. So really happy to be here this morning. Let's hear from you. We've got Tuyolisa from the pronunciation of that word. I know that it caused quite a conundrum at some point when South Africa was engaging in changing names. So also in the Eastern Cape. Thank you, Yolisa. Let's see, we've also got, who else? Okay, we've got more people coming in. Sipesi Hlembondwana, East London, South Africa. A warm welcome to you, Sipesi. Thank you for joining this morning. Okay, so while that's happening, as people are kind of populating, where they're from, just to kickstart the session, I suppose I want to share with you, a little disclaimer about the things that I love. So the first is that I really love red lipstick. I love red lipstick. And I learned the other day that red lipstick actually makes your lips look whiter. That's just an aside, but I love red lipstick. I feel confident. I feel great when I wear red lipstick. I also love women, and I think it is fitting that I then am the person who is kickstarting the series that's been designed for women like yourselves who are in business. Some of you are entrepreneurs, others of you are professionals, but I really love women. And I think for me, it has to do with the fact that, one, I'm a mother to 3 beautiful children, and I really realize that they don't make them like they make us. There are qualities that women bring to the table that over the years I've come to appreciate, and particularly as somebody who's a mother to many children. I love women. I'm very clear about the value that women bring to the table. I'm not sure that we are always clear about the extent to which we make such a powerful contribution. And today's conversation is really going to be to say that I believe that women have tremendous value to contribute. And sometimes I think we don't own this enough about ourselves. And then the final thing is that I also love getting my hands dirty. And I think this is what any kind of development work is about. I'm passionate about personal development. I'm passionate about assisting people to really navigate that distance between where they are and where they'd like to be. That very sort of tricky, in-between stuff that we need to work through. So I love red lipstick, I love women, and I love development. And I think it's fitting that the business Zoya Speaks, our business was able to partner with HYBA to put together today's event. This is against the backdrop of August being Women's Month, really being a time where we celebrate women. And I think, for those who know, in South Africa yesterday, the 9th of August, we commemorated National Women's Day. And really, I think, ladies, what we were saying yesterday and for the whole of this month is that we really are in it for the emancipation of women. We're in it for gender parity or gender equality in our professional spaces, in our personal spaces as well. And so we really are honored as Zoya Speaks to be able to partner with HYBA, who I know have been delivering these high impact Women's Months programs for the past couple of years. And in particular for today's session, we are going to be looking at this concept of being heard. We've titled the session, Be Heard, Personally, Professionally, Powerfully. And, it really is off of the back of my own story working in corporate, and I'll share that with you briefly. I see we've got Bonnie, who's based in Tanzania. Welcome, Bonnie. We've got Michelle, who's in Cape Town. Welcome to Michelle as well. For those who are joining, we have asked that you just share on the chat function, your name, as well as the country, the region, the continent that you're representing. So, my story goes that I worked in corporate for about 10 years until the year 2014, when I eventually then became a corporate dropout. I describe myself as a corporate dropout. And this is because in the year 2014, I made the decision that perhaps this was not the place where I was going to make impact. I'd spent over 10 years desperately trying to climb that proverbial ladder and failing dismally at that. And when I eventually made the decision to leave corporate in 2014, I remember just feeling like, my self-esteem had been eroded, feeling as though, I was that person who went from being able to kind of raise my hand confidently to not even being able to do this. I literally felt as though I'd lost my voice. I was disconnected from who I am. And by the time I left, I remember deciding that I was going to invest a little bit of time and energy in rediscovering my voice and really being able to tell my story. And this is the backdrop of today's conversation. I discovered that a lot of the challenges that I had experienced in corporate were related to the fact that I felt unseen, I felt unheard. I didn't feel as though my contributions mattered. In fact, I was asking, what's the point of my being here? And so fast forward to where we are today. We started a business, Zoya Speaks. And in it, really, what we wanted to do was to assist people who'd found themselves in a similar predicament. And the Be Heard program that we're going to be going through today really covers some of the aspects that can assist us to show up in a way that ensures that we are heard. We're going to be looking specifically at how you can be heard in a professional sense. Some of you are businesswomen on this call. And so we're going to be assisting you with this concept around kind of how do you pitch? How do you persuade audiences? How do you engage with people in ways that ensure you're understood, you're memorable, you are heard? And so that's really going to be how we work today. I'm going to be working with a very able team of Yolisa, and Michelle. Please, ladies, let's do this. Yolisa will be checking out for your contributions on the chat. And then, of course, Michelle, I am going to ask you at some point just to work with me in terms of the slides. So thank you to those ladies for availing themselves to do that this morning. Okay, so to kickstart the session, ladies, I am going to ask Michelle that you please do share for me. I am going to ask that you please project for me, and then I will join on my cell phone. I've just got a little bit of a battery situation, so I'm going to change devices if you don't mind. Michelle, if I could ask you to please start the share, and then we're going to kickstart our session. Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, I am back. I am back. And so let's keep it moving. So ladies, you know, just in terms of building the case for being heard, Michelle, if we could go to the slide, building the case for being heard. One of the things I say is that it's so important because it actually does build your brand. It's a brand building activity. It really assists you to kind of also build your reputation as an expert. When people hear you contribute your thinking, when people are able to listen to you sharing your thought leadership, it assists to build your reputation. It enhances your confidence and sales skills. We also say that there is correlation between effective communication and leadership. It goes without saying, ladies, that when we see people, you know, take to the platform, when we see people confidently share, you know, their thinking, communicating their thinking, for some reason, we actually see them as leaders. And the inverse also applies, that sometimes when we don't see people who we know are bright, who we know are smart, but who typically don't kind of contribute, we're not so sure that we see those people as leaders. And in fact, one of the things I say is that when you are that person who has bright ideas, who's very smart and who never says anything, who's always quiet, we kind of actually just get to know you as the quiet one. And then eventually I said that it is essential to the success of your business, this concept of being heard. It's essential to the success of your growth as a professional as well. Thank you so much. Next slide. And so when we're talking about the skills that you're going to need in order to be future-proof, if we're thinking about the session today, where we're saying it's really about saying that we're future-proofing women for change, you know, the list here tells us that yes, digital literacy, problem solving, all of those things are critical, but two skills that are going to be needed for you as you move into kind of the future, thinking about yourself personally and professionally, are communication skills, one, as well as self-knowledge and emotional intelligence. And the Be Heard program combines these two elements. It says, how do we bolster your communication skills alongside bolstering your EQ? Alongside assisting you to better know yourself, what you bring to the table, really understand what's my value, what's my proposition around what I bring to the table that I can contribute to whatever space I find myself in. And so in terms of how we're going to be looking you know, at the elements today, we're going to be covering three specific things. And these are, thank you, Mesh, and these are for the most part, one, building or presentations or creating presentations that are clear. So clarity is of the essence. We've got to be clear in our presentations. And in particular, we're going to zoom in on this concept of starting with why. So why am I standing up to present in the first place? And then how do I do that, you know, with persuasion and power? How do I influence my audience? The second is I talk about being concise. I say we've got to get to the point. And I'm going to assist you here you know, with a wonderful a framework that assists us to structure our presentations to ensure that they really capture our audiences from the get-go. And then finally, I say here, it's all about confidence. You know, if you project confidence in your delivery, your audiences certainly will want to hear you. They will want to engage with you. And so there I'm going to look at how you can use your body language as well as this wonderful instrument that you have called your voice to deliver powerful, impactful messages with confidence. So if we, get going and we start with the very first aspect, which is all around being clear and clarity. Thank you, Mish. I want to introduce you to something called Start With Why. And this is actually the work of a gentleman named Simon Sinek, or Simon Sinek, for those of you who read leadership books and the rest of it. And in it, he says that for the most part, the businesses the businesses that we're seeing today, the organizations that we're seeing today, typically are focused on their why. People are no longer interested in kind of just what you sell. We're interested in why you sell what you sell. What's the problem that you're fundamentally solving? Why do you do what you do? Why do you wake up in the morning and do what you do? And so when we take the same concept and broadly link it to this concept of presentations and delivering presentations, we say you've got to start with why you are speaking in the first place. And there are 4 broad reasons that we've identified around why you typically would stand up to deliver a presentation in the first place. The first is you actually stand up to share information with your audience. So it's to inform them. Now, when we share information, we're either building on existing information that our audiences know, or we're bringing them new information. Other times we're upskilling them. We're bringing some kind of skill that can assist our audiences. We also stand up for the purposes of inspiring our audiences. What is this all about? This is just about kind of really connecting to their emotions. When people feel inspired, it's an emotional kind of feeling. You really kind of are speaking to people's values, really kind of digging deep, I think, getting people to introspect, dig deep. That's how inspiration happens. The third one, an obvious one, entertainment. This is where you really are kind of, wanting to cause your audiences to feel some kind of pleasure, enjoyment. It's humorous, it's entertaining. This is why you speak. And then the final one, and you see I've highlighted it, is for the purposes of persuasion. We actually stand up to persuade our audiences. Now, I want to just quickly pause on this one for a bit to say that if you think about it, we're constantly in the business of persuasion. Most people will say to me, but I'm not in sales. I don't work in the sales department, and therefore I'm not persuading. And I say, absolutely not. We're persuading when you are wanting to invest or enroll somebody in an idea that you have to persuade them. When you want people to think about something differently, you're using the act or the art of persuasion. And so we're constantly persuading, whether it's to enroll people to see things from a different perspective, whether it's to actually get people to buy into an idea that we have, whether we're proposing some kind of change to the business, we're constantly using persuasion. And so let's move to the next slide. Thank you so much. And so what is persuasion? Well, the first, and this is the dictionary definition, the first is that it really is the ability to cause someone to believe something, especially after a sustained effort. So you've had to convince them, and it really is that ability to then cause them to believe something. The second one is, it's the process by which a person's attitudes or behavior are, without duress, influenced by communications from other people. When we talk about this concept of without duress, we're saying you're not forcing people. Persuasion isn't about force or coercion. It really is that ability to use influence through communications to change, people's attitudes or behavior. And so if I asked you, the question on a simple scale of 1 to 5, how might you rate yourself in terms of persuasion? 1 being, I am terrible at persuasion. I don't know how to convince anyone to do anything. 5 being a pro. I'm the type who could sell ice to an Eskimo, as that famous quote goes. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 using the chat function. How persuasive do you think you are? Yoli, is there anybody on the chat? Are we hearing anything from anybody? Okay. Yoli rates herself 3, somewhere in the middle, somewhere in between. Let's hear from you. Sihle says 2. Okay, Beryl says 2. And maybe just out of interest, Beryl, if you're able to unmute, why do you give yourself a 2? Okay, I don't know if Beryl is able to unmute. Maybe just type on the chat why you've given yourself a 2 out of 5. Okay, no worries. That's okay, Beryl. No worries. Maybe just share on the chat. Sihle, maybe if you're able to unmute, let's hear from you. Why don't you give yourself a 2?
Hello, can you hear?
We can hear you loud and clear.
I think maybe it's me just thinking of it still being I didn't think of, I mean, we are persuading people every day, but I think I'm not intentional about it. I'm not strategic about it. So I don't put in a lot of effort to convince people. I almost believe that it's like a natural thing, even though I know it's not. I don't think I'm naturally inclined to it. So I think because I don't, okay.
Thank you. So I love the guy. I mean, you said a couple of very amazing things that on the one hand, I'm not intentional about it. In fact, I don't even pay kind of any attention to this thing. I probably am doing it naturally, but I don't have this awareness of kind of, I'm not intentional. I'm not particularly strategic about it as well. And so what we're going to do, thank you, Sihle, what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to assist you to become a little bit more intentional about it. I'm going to assist you to think about how you can use it strategically to influence the partners that you want to influence, to win people over from a business perspective, to be that person in a room who people kind of go, I want to know that person. I want to connect with that person. And so I thank you so much, Mish. Let's keep it moving. I want to introduce you to something called the 4 components of persuasion, okay? And really, these are things you want to employ as somebody who says, I want to build my ability to persuade. The first is you want to establish credibility. The second is you want to frame for common ground. The third is you want to provide evidence. And finally, you want to connect emotionally. So let's unpack these a little bit. So when we're talking about establishing credibility, thank you, Mish. We're saying it's made up of 2 components. So your credibility is a consequence of your competence, so what you bring to the table. So it's the track record you have in your area. It's others' perception about your knowledge of the strategy or the product or the change that you're proposing. So it's all about your competence. Most people actually have competence. Most people are actually skilled at the work that they do. This one is not often a problem. The second one's a little bit interesting, and this is about confidence. Now, this is not about how confident you believe, you know, or the trust that you have in yourself. It's not about your own confidence. This is about whether others can trust you. So it's the confidence that other people have in you. So when Zoya says she's going to do X, Y, Z, do people have confidence that Zoya is going to deliver? And this is really kind of about how you show up, ladies. If you're showing up as the person who can't be trusted because you constantly let people down, we don't have confidence in you. And this impacts your credibility. Okay? And so it's really about saying, do those I hope to persuade see me as helpful, as supportive, as somebody who will deliver when I say I'm going to deliver? The combination of your competence, what you bring to the table by way of your skills, and the confidence people have in you, becomes your credibility. You can go back into your organizations or go back to your friends and say, you know, friends, help me to do a little bit of an audit here. In terms of competence, you know, do you have a sense that I'm good at what I do? And then additional to that, do you think I'm somebody who can be trusted? Have I built up, you know, the kind of reputation that says when I commit to doing something, people believe that I will honor that, I will deliver on that which I promise. That's the first one, establishing credibility. The second one, let's keep it moving, is all around framing for common ground. This one is such a critical one. I always say when we stand up to present, we're not doing it for ourselves. Otherwise, you could stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself. It really is about saying, how do I answer the question, what's in it for the people who are in my audience? I have seen, ladies, time and time again, people who stand up to deliver presentations, and it's all about them. They have no sense at all of what's important to the audience they're engaging with. They kind of just have made this about themselves. I'll share a quick story. I once was invited to present to a group of ladies. I think it was for the Department of Police many years ago. And I was still new to the speaking thing, running this business as a speaker. And I remember arriving at the venue and seeing on the program that a very established Dr. So-and-so was going to present ahead of me. And I remember feeling like, yo, this titled person, the pressure I felt because of his title on me. And I didn't have any title. I was just Zoya Mabuto-Mokoditoa. And this Dr. So-and-so happened to be an elderly white man. And he went up to the platform, and I promise you, he put up a series of his PowerPoint presentation slides that had lots of writing on them. And he went on to mumble for what felt like an hour. There was no connection with the audience. I didn't get the sense that he had considered his audience at all. The ladies were bored to death. And I'll tell you something about audiences, they'll forgive you everything, but not a boring presentation. And they were visibly bored. And I remember being very excited to go after the doctor, because I knew that I was just going to build connection with that audience and really talk to something that connected with them. The response was electric. They woke up after sleeping through Dr. So-and-so's presentation. And so it's really important that we frame for common ground. Study what matters to the people you're trying to persuade. What are the tangible benefits of what you're bringing to them if you want them to be persuaded? So do a little bit of your research here. It's important. They need to have a very clear sense of what's in it for me as you are going through your presentation. Let's keep it moving. Thank you, Mish. And then, of course, you want to provide evidence, and this is really about kind of backing up your claims. So you've done your research, and then you want to present this either, through data or images or stories or anecdotes. But really, it's important to be able to substantiate the things that we say. I say here, numbers alone don't have an emotional impact. There's a tendency for people to kind of think, if you just throw the numbers at us, this is going to connect with us. And in fact, the neuroscience research tells us that when we share stories more than numbers, people are more likely to remember. And so provide that evidence that's really going to bolster your case, for whatever you're trying to persuade people to do. The final one is you want to connect emotionally. And this is really about kind of, what's in it for you. There are these call center agents who have a tendency these days to call us, and somebody will be selling very nicely. And I always like to trick them. So I will listen and I will be very engaged. And then I'll ask them, so why do you care about this product that you're trying to sell to me? And most times those who haven't invested in connecting emotionally to the product they're trying to sell to me will go, and they hit a block, literally. They're unable to, they're just reading off a script. And now I've challenged their script and I've said, but why do you care? And so you've got to be able to really showcase to your audience why you care for whatever you're trying to persuade them to purchase, to buy into. Why are you invested in that solution or idea in the first place? I also like to do this when people call me to speak. And I say, why have you chosen me? And those who've done their research will say things like, because you're somebody who is passionate about the African continent and about women development, because you're somebody who, who knows how to connect with audiences, whatever the case might be. They've done their research. They're clear about what it is that they want me to deliver. They're very clear. But if somebody hasn't prepared, they typically will say things like, because you're talented. And I go, what does that mean? You're the talented Zoya, or somebody said that you would do a good job. And I always catch them out in that way. So tell me, or tell your audiences the reasons why you are invested emotionally in the first place. This is important. And I always like to share stories as well. I did this by telling you about the fact that in my own life, the be heard concept resonates. Why? Because I lost my voice at some point. I was that person who didn't feel heard. So I used a story to show you what my emotional connection is to the very content I'm going to be sharing with you today. What's in it for you? Why are you invested in the product, the solution, the idea that you're bringing forward in the first place? Okay, thank you so much. Let's keep it moving. And so I was hoping to play this video for you, but really this video, it's a beautiful video by Jamie Oliver. And if you have an opportunity, look it up. It's a wonderful TED Talk that he delivered. And he showcases in this video, how to incorporate the 4 elements of persuasion. If you're saying, I really want to become better, in the first 2 minutes of this video, Jamie Oliver actually incorporates, the 4 elements of persuasion. Thank you so much. And I think what we'll do, Yoli, is just to share the link to this video on the chat function, and our audience can certainly watch to learn how to incorporate those 4 elements. Thank you so much, Mish. Let's keep it moving. So if I asked you to do a little bit of an individual reflection, if you're thinking about your own presentations, being heard, if you're thinking about how you want to become more intentional, to Sipesihle's point, and more strategic even. Just a little bit of time reflecting on what are the specific areas you need to work on as it relates to being clear in your presentations. And was there an insight that came to you as we were sort of engaging through the clarity part of the presentation today? And you can share this on the chat function. And maybe just to reiterate what Yoli has said, you are welcome to just pose any questions as we move along. So an opportunity for you just to reflect on what we've covered up till this point. Okay, so as you do that, as you kind of share on the chat function, I am going to keep it moving, just mindful of our time. And Yoli, you're welcome just to stop me if there are any contributions coming through the chat function. So let's keep it moving. Thank you, Mesh. So now we move to the second part, which is all about being concise. And the question I want to pose to you is, how long did it take you to make an impression of me? So you came onto this call and you saw me, I introduced myself. I want to know how long you think it took you to make an impression of me. And I'm handing over to the audience. And you can type on the chat or you can come off of chat. Yoli, let's just engage with some of the people who are on the call today. How long do you think it took you? So Sipesihle says, okay. Sipesihle is saying point 1, 2, and 3. I need to work on them. I'm assuming that this is in relation to the 4 elements of persuasion around establishing credibility, around framing for common ground, and then providing evidence. Absolutely, Sihle. Glad that you're able to identify, Sipesihle, sorry. Glad that you're able to identify those areas that you need to zoom in on. So the next question is, how long do you think it took you to form some kind of impression of me? 1 second, 10 seconds, a minute? How long do you think it took you?
Maybe if Kamela can unmute and let us know. We've got someone on Galaxy A3. They've unmuted, so I'm not sure if they want to answer.
So Beryl says, for me, it was when you started to engage with us personally. Okay. Okay.
Kabelo, yeah.
Thank you, Kabelo.
For me, well, actually, I've been with Zoya in a different program before. So I think I came in already with, having made up my mind. But it's always in the first few sentences where you manage to really capture us, as an audience. And I think you've got a very powerful way of telling stories. And that, for me, always does it.
Thank you, Gabelo. Thank you, Gabelo. I always get that way when people say, I saw you from a previous session. There's a lot of these different sessions. Thank you for coming again. It's always wonderful to have repeat customers, as it were. So thank you for joining. So it's interesting because typically we say it takes 7 seconds or up to 7 seconds for a person to make an impression. This is before a person has even opened their mouth. We make snap judgments like that. And oftentimes it's informed by the fact that we actually just are looking at a person. Before a person's even opened their mouth, our brains already decided, do I like them? Can I trust them? And then it's further compounded when we move on to these online platforms. And in fact, this multiplier research tells us that it takes 3 to 5 seconds for us to make an impression online. So this is telling, ladies, and it's saying to us that we actually really have to be intentional and strategic when we're thinking about how we're going to engage when we come onto these online platforms. And for the most part, I'm saying, get to the point. No more of kind of, multiple layers before we get to the thing. We've got to be clear about this is what we're bringing to the table, and then we're going to unpack how what all of that is about. Be very clear to get to the point from the get-go. Okay, so let's keep it moving. And I want to introduce you to a framework that's actually going to assist you to be able to do that. And it's called the Mentor Pyramid Principle. And I don't know if it was an accident that this was actually designed by a woman. Her name is Barbara Minto. And she put this wonderful framework together at a time when she was working at McKinsey, the management consulting firm. And really, in this Mentor Pyramid Principle, thank you, next slide, Michelle. You know, Barbara Minto was saying for the most part that your thinking is going to be easy for a reader or for a listener to grasp if you present the ideas organized as a pyramid under a single point. In other words, you want to start with, this is the core message. Then you want to get into, these are the details, the important details. And then you want to get into, these are some of the finer details. Most times in our presentations, we aren't even able to get to those finer details. We actually only are able to hit the core message and the important details. And if people want more information, we're able to give some of the finer details. We're going to unpack, you know, what we mean by this shortly. So let's move to the next slide. What we do know, though, is that our minds are already doing this, ladies. Your mind is automatically sorting all of the, you know, information that's coming at it. If you think about it, you're constantly getting tons of information thrown at you. Your mind already sorts information into kind of pyramids or into light buckets already. And I want to do a quick exercise to show you this, right? I want you to say the word silk 10 times. So whoever can come off of mute, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. I'm going to ask all of those, sorry, you can unmute yourselves. So please unmute yourselves just for the purpose of this exercise. And I want you to say the word silk 10 times, okay? So let's go. Silk, silk, silk.
Silk, 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 silk.
Question, what does a cow drink? Shout it out. Some of you are laughing at yourselves. Wait. Okay, so who said milk? I heard a milk out loud.
I did.
Whose eye? This Kabelo.
Yes.
Okay, let's go back onto mute except for Kabelo. So let's all mute ourselves except for Kabelo. So Kabelo, you said milk. Why do you think you said milk? Because we know that a cow doesn't drink milk, right?
Yes.
What does a cow drink, Kabelo?
Water.
A cow drinks water. We know that. Some of you were laughing at yourselves because you were going, your brain instinctively went to milk.
Yeah.
Because I had programmed it, I'd given you silk, and so your brain, which loves going for the most efficient route, said, okay, cow, and milk came to you, even though milk is wrong. And this is because your brain does that. It literally takes in so much information that for the most part, to assist it to be efficient in terms of all of this information, it actually starts to sort things into these little pyramids. So it's doing this already. But I'm going to assist you to really see how you can organize your thinking in a way that's easy for people to grasp, easy for people to understand and to remember. And we're going to use this mentor pyramid principle concept. Let's keep it moving. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a fun exercise with you because I love fun and I love us being engaged together. And I'm going to present you with 9 things on the screen. And it's 9 words. So you're not looking at the pictures, you're looking at the actual written words on the screen. And I'm going to give you 10 seconds and you need to try and see if you can remember these 9 things. Okay? 10 seconds is going to start shortly. Give me a second. I'm going to find my timer. Okay. Where is it? There we go. I just need to reset my timer. Okay, and I'm going to give you 10 seconds to remember 9 things. Okay, are we ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're saying I'm ready. Just give me some kind of sense that you're good to go. Okay, great. Thank you. Your time starts now. And your time's up. Thank you. Who can remember all 9 items? I want somebody to come on. Unmute yourself if you remember all 9 items. I want to hear somebody who can give me all 9 items, please. Is there anybody? Does anybody want to try?
I was about to ask if maybe it can be a collaboration.
Okay, we can collaborate on the 9 items as well. I love collaboration. Let's collaborate. So, let's hear from you. 9 items. Yoli, yes?
I'll give 2, bagel and banana.
Bagel and banana. Okay,
yes, so
thanks.
I'll give to Kabelo to try and add.
Okay, I remember bread, soap, donut, apple. Hey, those 2 you already gave, yeah.
Okay, so we're sitting at 6 and we need 3 more.
So there was bread, banana, bagel, soap, donut, bread, banana, soap, donut, bagel, apple. Yeah, I think that's about all now. I remember those 6. Yes.
There's a conditioner as well.
And shampoo.
So we've got shampoo, we've got conditioner, 1 more.
The grapefruit.
Grapefruit, yay! So the
collaboration work.
The collaboration works definitely because that got us to 9. When you were trying to do this by yourself, I think we had that gentleman, I didn't get your name, who came in at 6. Well done. And so let's go back to the items. Let's go back to the items. So bread, soap, dough, donut, grapefruit, apple, shampoo, banana, conditioner, bagel. So let's agree that for the most part, there's no ordering here. And because there's no ordering, it makes it very difficult to remember. And so the Minto Pyramid principle says, when you are putting together your ideas, you actually want to start with this like this. You want to put all of the ideas together. They don't need to be ordered. Just put them down as if you were putting them exactly in the way that you see on screen. And then what you want to do next, this is when you're planning your presentation. Let's go to the next slide. Is you actually want to do the work of clustering the like items. And so if we think about what we saw there, we had apple, grapefruit, and banana. These are like items. And then we also had bread, bagel, donut, and eventually we also had shampoo, conditioner, and soap. These all, can be grouped together. Okay, and so you cluster everything that is the same or similar, like or same ideas are then clustered together. What you then do is you sort them into kind of, this is what they are. So the groupings that they represent. So we have fruit, we have bakery, we have toiletries. And then eventually you say, I summarize all of that to get to kind of the main point, the core message, which in this example could be called a shopping list. Thank you so much, Mish. Mish, thank you. And so when we're talking about, Mish, go back. When we're talking about kind of how do we plan the presentation, you start with all of the ideas, put everything down together, and then cluster the like items, sort them into their respective groupings, and ultimately summarize to this is what this is. So in this example, we have a shopping list that's made up of fruit, bakery, and toiletry items. We said those are the important details. And if we said we want to get into the finer details, we'd say under fruit, we have apple, grapefruit, banana, etc., etc. Are we all still together? Thumbs up or thumbs down, yes, no, etc. Let's just hear from you. Are we still together? Wonderful. So let's keep it moving. So what we've done is when you were putting your information together, you started at the bottom of the pyramid and you went up. So we call that a bottoms up synthesizing of the information. It assisted you to move from a whole series of things, right, to the crystal clear clarity message, that message, the core message. And then we say when you communicate, you're not going to communicate from the bottom. That's all of the finer details. We're not interested in that. You're going to communicate from the top down. And so you're going to start with, this is my shopping list. These are the items in my shopping list. or etc., and then get down to, I'm actually going to end up with a basket full of banana, bread, bagel, grapefruit, etc. Sometimes we don't get to those finer details, particularly if you're presenting to people in senior management, you're talking to your exco. They want to get a very clear sense of what is the core message, what are some of those important details. We don't need to get the finer details now. Those can be included in an addendum of sorts. And so that's one of the things that you want to do when we talk about really getting to the point. Let's keep it moving. Thank you so much. Are there any questions, any comments or anything before I move to storytelling? Okay, so I'm going to keep it moving, Yoli. Just give me a thumbs up. I can keep it moving.
Yes, you can keep it moving. Just wanted to say, I think it's so important, especially because, with the different projects that one does, you're often speaking to someone quite senior and they just want to get, to the point and not hear, the history behind things. So I think it's a really critical point that you make.
Thank you so much, Yodi. And I mean, I think we can all acknowledge that time has become of the essence. Nowadays, people don't have copious amounts of time to spend kind of listening to us, go on and on about things that they don't really matter. People want to get a very clear sense of what's the thing because of this time component. We're all wanting to make the most of the time that we have given to us in our presentations. So the next part around, how to really kind of get to the point, you could use storytelling to assist you to craft messages that are concise. Now, that can feel like it's a paradox, right? Stories are long-winded by nature. What do you mean I can use a story to get to the point or to be concise? So let's unpack, a little bit of reasons around why storytelling is powerful and why stories captivate. So what they do is they actually synchronize the listener's brain with the teller's brain. When I tell you a story, all of a sudden, what happens is that the action, when I'm engaging you through, that I'm talking to you about, the same action plays out in your own mind. Okay, so there's a synchronization of my brain with your brain. And I'm going to unpack this a little bit just now. It connects the listener to the storyteller emotionally. Stories, we know, are powerful in terms of connecting us in an emotional sense. Thank you. They light up more areas of the brain than factual reporting. When you just hear a series of stats like this, I promise you're not going to remember. And I'm going to show you exactly that. It enhances memory, and I'll tell you about why this happens. You actually release a wonderful hormone called dopamine. They command human attention. This is the thing about stories. They command our attention sometimes because of the relatability aspect. And we also know that they can change the brain's chemistry. So these are some of the things we know about stories. Thank you, Mish. And we know that they also affect behavior. When people hear a story versus read a series of facts, and this is actually some research that was done by Ariel, where they actually told a story. And when they told the story, the behavior change that was recorded afterwards was different, to when people had just read a series of facts or had been told about the harmful effects of the particular thing they were testing. But when a story was shared, all of a sudden people behaved a little bit differently. And so stories are incredibly powerful because they do all of these things. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about how I have had to overcome nerves as a speaker. So I remember the year was 2012, and I had decided that I wanted to participate in a public speaking competition. I had done this quite unintentionally. I was unintentional about it. I wasn't strategic at all. In fact, there was a gentleman who was part of my Toastmasters club, Rob Douglas, who said to me, "Zoya, I think you have what it takes to become a winner of the Southern African Public Speaking Championship." And I said, "The what?" And he said, "Look, there's an overseas trip." And I promise you, I heard overseas trip. And I thought, okay, I'm going to enter this thing. And so I entered this competition. I didn't really prepare. I was poorly prepared. And I'll never forget, I had to go to Durban for the finals. I actually made it to the finals and I had to travel all the way to Durban. And I'll never forget, standing, watching that MC on that big stage, announcing, Zoya Mabuto with her speech titled, "Is he deluded? Is he deluded, Zoya Mabuto?" And I heard the audience clapping loudly for me, people expectant, really expecting me to deliver something powerful. I remember going up the stairs, moving across to the center of the stage. I shook the MC's hand, and then I watched the MC descend the platform in the opposite direction. And then I stood and I looked at those over 300 people, and I hit a complete blank. I froze on that stage. And so what do you think I did? Well, I just smiled. I just looked at them and I smiled from side to side. Inside, I was going, "Please just remember your presentation." Outside, I was feigning confidence, just smiling at them, looking from left to right. I eventually remembered my presentation and started it. I delivered the presentation. And, at the very end of it all, I placed second in that contest. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what? How did I place second? And people were coming to me afterwards to say to me, "Yo, Zoya, that was really amazing." And they said to me, what was amazing about my presentation was the fact that I had that dramatic pause at the beginning of my presentation. They said, "Yo, that dramatic pause was everything." And of course, we knew that there was no dramatic pause. I had just forgotten the entire presentation. And so that's a wonderful story about, me and some of my speaking journey and ways in which I deal with nerves. One of the ways I deal with nerves is actually just to smile. When I've forgotten presentation, I literally just smile. Let me finish. I'll come to the comment now. Is I literally just smile. To this day, when I have forgotten my presentations and you see me quiet and just smiling, please know that some magic is happening inside my brain. I'm just trying to remember my presentations. Okay, there's a comment on the chat. Yes, Yoli.
There's a comment from Usi. They're saying that a great example in storytelling is crime channels. They captivate and make you feel emotionally connected to the story.
100%. And this is why they're so addictive. People are addicted to those crime channel stories. Thank you so much, Sipesihle, for sharing that. So did you realize as you were listening to my story, that if I asked you, number one, to tell the story back to other people, you would likely be able to tell the story. You might not be able to tell it word for word, but for the most part, you'd be able to tell the story I've just shared with you about me going up onto a stage, looking out at an audiences, hitting a blank, smiling as I looked at them from left to right, and eventually remembering my presentation. Afterwards, people coming to me to say, "Yo, that dramatic pause at the beginning of your presentation was everything." You would remember that because there was a synchronization happening with my brain and your brain as I was telling you the story. You were connected, to the story emotionally. Please, can you go back? Please go back, Mish. You were connected, to the story as you were hearing me talk about how I hit a blank. Why? Because you might have had the same experience at some point in your life where you had to stand up and present to people and you hit a blank. And so all of these things were happening. If I asked you to, list 1 to 7, why do stories captivate? You're not going to remember all of this, right? You might remember 1 or 2 things, but you certainly would be able to tell the story. This is the power of storytelling. So thank you so much, Mish. Next slide. And so if I just go back to what I've shared with you, it's actually very interesting. There is some scientific research, neuroscience telling us that stories are incredibly powerful because they connect with people. They talk about something called neural coupling and mirroring. These are some of the things we spoke to a little bit earlier, where I said that when I tell a story, okay, that story activates parts in the brain that allows the person who's listening to the story to actually turn the story into your own ideas and experience. So you take my story and you turn it into your own ideas and experience. And this is called neural coupling. We do this when we listen to a story, okay? And so we talk about that synchronicity, neural coupling. There's synchronization between what I'm saying, what you're hearing, and how that lands for you as you turn it into your own ideas and experiences. Then mirroring, we say that the listener doesn't only experience the same brain activity to me, the speaker, but we actually all experience the same brain activity to each other. When you're listening to a story, our brain activity is the same. And I tested this concept with my children. I've got the three little children, as I told you earlier, and I tested it with my 9-year-old when she was about 6, and we watched the movie The Lion King. We all know The Lion King, right? Now, in The Lion King, there's that first scene, or the first sort of couple of scenes, actually. And one of the most sort of moving parts there is when Simba's dad dies. You remember that one, where King Mufasa dies and is killed by his brother Scar. There's that stampede of buffaloes. We remember that? Yes, thumbs up. No, nobody watched The Lion King?
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. And so if you think about it, you know, or go back to that particular scene. So in that scene, Mufasa dies, and you know, it's very emotional. So I tested this with my children. We watched it, and my 6-year-old literally was crying as the father to Simba is killed by the brother Scar. So Mufasa dies, crying. I'm crying as well. And then I watched it a couple of years later with my second born when she was 6. Recently, we watched it with her, and I saw her crying, Mommy, this is so sad, right? Now the 9-year-old is crying, the 6-year-old is crying, I'm crying in the exact same place. And it's because when we are listening to a story, we experience the same brain activity to the person telling the story, but also to each other. And this is why stories are powerful, ladies, because they literally are empathy machines. This is why you feel empathy. When somebody gets emotional and teary in their story, you're also getting teary as you're watching them get teary in their story. Very powerful stuff. And then the third reason is because we actually release this hormone called dopamine. And dopamine is responsible for 2 things. It's responsible for assisting you to focus. It's also responsible for retention. So really assisting you in terms of focus and memory. So when we hear a story, dopamine is released in the brain, and then people are able to remember the story. We focus on a story and we remember it with greater accuracy than if we were presented with series of facts. And then, of course, the last one we spoke about, where I said more areas of your brain light up in the presence of a story. So start your presentation with sharing a story. You will immediately capture your audience, because this is what is happening. The neuroscience research confirms that it's a story, it's an empathy machine, that you're building connections when you share a story. People are able to remember with greater accuracy, and you certainly are going to be able to get them to focus a little bit. And so include stories in your presentations as much as possible. Thank you so much, Mish. Next slide. And so ways in which to do it. Really, we're saying share the story of why you started your business if you're somebody who's in business. You know, if we're talking about your corporate challenges, think of an experience where you've had to overcome challenges to be where you are. Think about an inspiring experience you had with a customer. There's a beautiful story there. Think of the problem that you're trying to solve and share the story around that. How did that insight come to you? So there's multiple ways in which you can take the experiences that you're having and couch them into the language of story so that you can build those connections with your audiences. Are there any questions as it relates to this one, or any sort of comments or inputs from yourselves? Okay, let's keep it moving. Thank you. An opportunity for you to reflect. Thank you, Mish. Okay, Wanda says, I've taken note, you know, of the importance of sharing stories to connect with my audiences. Here's an opportunity for you just to have a little bit of a reflection around the specific areas you need to work on as it relates to being concise in your presentation. So how might you apply that mental pyramid principles? What are some of the stories that you can share as you pitch, as you share, as you share presentations, as you connect with your audiences, whether this is, you know, for the purposes of a pitch, or if you're just trying to persuade them to purchase a product or buy into an idea. Are there any insights that have come to you about your own presentations and pitches? What are some of the things you are already doing? What are some of the things you need to stop doing? Maybe there's things you need to stop doing as it relates to really being concise in your presentations.
I think that mental pyramid principle, you know, there's just so much to it. I think it's so easy to have that list. It's really not sorted out. I think those are my reflections, that perhaps I have a list of things and it's not, you know, it's not into clusters, it's not sorted out. And so how do I do that intentionally? I think that also like Sipe, not intentional or strategic, but just kind of, just kind of doing it and not being intentional about it. So I think those are my.
Thank you. Thank you, Yoli. And really my hope is that you can real time go back and apply. And I think we can share the slides with everybody. And I'll also see if I can send a recording. I've done a recording when I really kind of just speak to this and unpack it for you a little bit more. So we'll share that as well with the audience. And so let's keep it moving. Can I just get a time check, please? Yoli, can you confirm our time? My devices have all switched off here and I'm not able to get a sense of my time.
It's 10:05.
Okay, perfect. So we've still got a little bit of time to go through this one. And really, this one is the final one. So we said, those three elements we've looked at, how we can be clear in our presentations. Then we said we want to get to the point, be concise in our presentations. And finally, it's about that confidence. How do you show up to your presentation? I always say, in these various presentations that if you don't buy into what you are selling, then why on earth, must I buy into what you're selling? And so confidence is really about that. It's that trust in what you're bringing to the table. It's that knowledge that you have something of value to contribute. And so we're going to talk to that. So confidence is really about the presentation delivery aspect. So how do I deliver my presentations in ways that exude kind of confidence? And we're going to have a little bit of fun with this one. So to kickstart, I want us all to do an audit of our bodies. So as you're sitting where you're sitting now, I want you to become aware of kind of what does your body look like? Are your arms crossed? Are your legs crossed? Are you sitting upright? Are you crouched? Do an audit of your body. What do you observe about how your body language is right now? And we can just engage in the plenary. So what does your body look like? There was a gentleman in the session, maybe to invite you into the plenary, just to share with us kind of as you're doing an audit of your body language. Take me through kind of what do you observe?
Wanda, I think we can't hear you. Your line is static. It looks like his audio is connecting.
Okay, let's go to somebody else. I don't know if there's any other person who'd like to step in and just share. As you audit your body language, what have you become aware of?
Recording.
Maybe Unati, can you share with us?
I'm actually sitting in bed because it's freezing cold, and I would say I'm engaged. That's my body language.
So what are the physical things you're aware of? So you say you're sitting in bed.
Yes.
Okay, so you're sitting in bed, you probably have your legs stretched out. Are your hands are you holding, what are you doing with your hands?
I am holding my hands together.
So you're holding your hands together because you're cold, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're trying to keep yourself warm. Thank you, Unati. Is that Unati? Sorry, was it Unati?
Yes, it's Unati.
Okay, thank you, Unati. Anybody else? And maybe somebody who's sitting at a desk. We're not as lucky as Unati to still be in bed. Okay, so I'm going to keep it moving, but really for me to say that, what's going to become important as you think about exuding confidence in your presentations is to really become aware of the story that your body is telling. We say your body speaks. And in fact, your body is so profoundly loud that if I were to say something with my mouth and then do the opposite with my body, you would believe what you see over what you hear. I'm going to repeat that. If I were to say something with my mouth and do the opposite with my body language does the opposite, you would believe what you see over what you hear. This is the power of body language. And so we have to become aware of what we're communicating, what our bodies are saying. I always say our bodies tell on us. We think that we can just speak wonderful words and the body's saying something completely different, and it's really telling the truth of what's actually happening. So it's important that we then become aware of our body language. Let's keep it moving. Thank you so much. There we go. And so I want to introduce you to the work of a lady named Amy Cuddy. She put together a wonderful TED Talk a couple of years back, and she said your body language can actually shape who you become. In other words, up until, Amy Cuddy released her TED Talk, we had thought for the most part that I could speak words that are powerful, affirming, positive, and that would change how I feel. And she's saying, but what if we considered doing the exact same thing with our bodies? What if we could use affirming body language to also influence how we feel, right? Your body language can shape who you are. And so she introduces us to this concept of power posing. Thank you, Mish. And she talks about low power and high power poses. And she says that when we feel good, we unconsciously adopt high power poses. And if you're looking at the graphic on screen, high power poses include things like standing wide stance. They include things like your arms raised in a V above your head. And in fact, here, there was a little bit of research or test they did here where they looked at people who are blind. There was a race that, they studied people who were athletes, but who are visually impaired. And when the visually impaired athletes were competing and a person won the race, and of course, I don't know how they did this, but it was done. When a person who was visually impaired sort of won the race, their hands instinctively would go up into the end, that kind of V shape, that victory shape, that celebratory pose. The hands on hips can also be a power pose, or arms crossed behind the head, sitting or standing. The question I want to pose to you is, what do you notice about these high power poses? If you're thinking about kind of body language, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. What do you notice about these high power poses? What is similar about them? What do you notice about the high power poses? They have something in common.
All of them are standing.
All of them are standing.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. What they have in common is that people are standing. And if you think about it, if I'm standing, I don't know if you can see me. If I'm standing, all of a sudden I'm bigger standing than I am sitting. Is that correct? If you were to stand now, when you stand, you become bigger than if you're sitting. Can we agree? And so the commonality in the high power pose is that they're actually about you making yourself bigger. So when you stand, you make yourself bigger. When you open your arms, you make yourself bigger. When you put your hands on your hips, you're making yourself bigger. When you extend your arms all the way to the back, you're making yourself bigger. That's what high power poses is all about. That you can communicate confidence or exude confidence simply by making yourself bigger, by taking up space, as it were. Okay? And then if you go to the opposite side with the low power poses, literally low power poses are the ones that typically have us make ourselves smaller. And when we make ourselves smaller, when we're crouching, when it's that head sort of bent in, bent down, right? Those hunched shoulders, that bent back, etc. All of those send the message that for the most part, I may not be feeling as confident. We are doing this whether we're conscious or not. If we take it a step further, when there is somebody in the room who has high power, maybe because they've got a particular title, and they walk into the room, and let's imagine you are sitting on a chair, and they come and they stand over you. What the research tells us is that we typically then, we don't compliment them by standing up to meet them at the place of power. When we experience a person of power and they put their power over us, we have a tendency to make ourselves smaller. These are the things we need to become aware of as leaders. These are the things we need to become aware of as women leaders in particular, where there's a tendency for women to shrink themselves to make themselves smaller in boardroom setups where there is a high masculine presence. So the masculine presence comes in, takes up space. We see men who do things like this, even sitting down, puts up his foot, does this. And yet as women, what we typically tend to do in those situations is actually to shrink ourselves, to make ourselves smaller. What we're challenged to do, ladies, is actually to rise to the occasion. If somebody comes in and they are taking up space, we must not make ourselves smaller. We must actually almost kind of stand up and meet them at that place to say we're equals in this space. Men are very good at stepping in and kind of taking up space using their physicality. One, because they tend to be bigger, and also because they carry themselves in a particular way in a corporate space. And so really wondering what some of your experiences are and inviting us almost to become mindful about how we take up space as women in boardroom setups, in social setups as well. I have seen how women are very deliberate to kind of make themselves small. Society has said that the woman who is kind of head down, kind of, pulled towards herself is respectful, etc. What this research is telling us is that all it does is to communicate the message that you're shrinking yourself, you're making yourself small. And this is interesting within an African context as well. And we're not going to go into the conversation deeper, but perhaps just to invite you to do a little bit of your own auditing of how you show up using your body language. Thank you. Let's keep it moving. And so examples of body language are gestures, eye contact, movement, stance, all of these things are contributing. And I think for the most part, you know this, right? So gestures being kind of, do you use your hands as you speak? Do you use your body as you speak? Eye contact, really speaking to kind of, do you connect with people using the power of just the eyes? They say eyes are the windows to the soul. And I'm mindful here that in some cultures we're told that culturally respect is don't look into a person's eyes. But for the purposes of presentations, we know the importance of eye contact for building connection. And then of course, movement as well. How do you move in a space? When you move haphazardly up and down as you're delivering a presentation, it can give the message that you're unsettled, you're not confident. Sometimes you've got to just be deliberate in your movement, where we say you're going to make a point and you move to the other side of the platform. And you can do this even as we deliver online presentations. In fact, I should have delivered this standing because I love to make use of my space. And then finally, kind of your stance. Are you grounded? Some people will stand and then they've got one leg firm on the ground and then they're fiddling with the other leg. Other people are kind of, standing very strangely, doing all sorts of things, kind of slanted, etc. Stance is really talking to you being kind of grounded, firmly placed on the ground. So all of these things will communicate some kind of message to people who are connecting with you about whether this person is confident, whether this person feels ready and prepared to deliver this message to us. So it's just to invite you to become mindful of your own body language and to start to say, what are some of the things that I need to change because I'm aware of the message that it is communicating to my audience. Thank you so much. Let's keep it moving. And then, of course, we come to the second part, which is all around voice. And voice has become much more important, particularly delivering on these platforms. How do we use our voices? And there's a wonderful gentleman named Julian Treasure. And he has a TED talk where he describes the human voice as an instrument. And he says, but, many of us do not know how to play this instrument well. We talk and we can't even hear you when you're talking. You don't use the full extent of this wonderful instrument called your voice. So let's go into a little bit around kind of what is the voice, what the qualities of a good voice. Thank you, Mish. So the qualities of a good voice include volume. So really this is kind of the loudness or softness of your voice in order to keep the audience's attention. When you are very loud, we can hear you, but if you're loud only, we start to switch off. When you're very soft, we tune out. We can't hear what you're saying. We can't connect to the message you're sharing. Pitch, how high or low your voice can go. When you don't vary your pitch, we end up with this monotonous sounding voice. A rate is the number of words you speak per minute. So rate or pace is how fast or slow you speak. You speak too fast, we're unable to keep up. We can't absorb your content. You speak too slow, we lose interest, we fall asleep. And then, of course, what you want to have is the kind of voice that really, conveys friendliness. It's a natural tone. It conveys confidence, and it must just be enjoyable and pleasant to the ear. And so all of these things are what you're wanting to think about in terms of a good quality voice. So I want us to do an activity together. And this activity is going to actually, be us using the power of our voices. Thank you, Mish. Next slide. And so we talk about,
Zoya?
the important, yes.
We've got 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. We talk about the importance of bringing vocal variety to our presentations when they use voice. And so, Yoli, is there like let's use the tagline, future-proofing women for change, for this particular activity. And I'm going to ask for 3 volunteers to do this voice activity. Okay, we're going to do a voice activity, and we're going to use the phrase future-proofing women for change. Just 3 people to volunteer for us to do a nice voice activity. Okay, Yoli, just help me. Do we have anybody? Just 3 people.
Can we ask Kabelo, Unati, and maybe Nono?
Kabelo, Unati, and Nono. Okay, they have to come off of mute. Kabelo, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can.
Good. Unati?
Yes.
Thank you. And then Nono.
I'm here, but unfortunately I'm at the office and there's other people, so I can't talk.
Okay, no. So we'll get you to do one of them. Don't worry, it's fine. So
Okay.
So let's get you. This is Nono. That's Nono, ne?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Nono, we'll get you to come in last. I will participate with Kabelo and Unati, okay? So if I could ask Kabelo to kick us off, and you are going to say the phrase future-proofing women for change. You're going to say it really loud and really fast. Now, this activity only works if you're willing to exaggerate. So you actually have to exaggerate a little bit for us to achieve the desired effect. So really loud, really fast, say the phrase future-proofing women for change. Over to you, Kabel.
Future-proofing women for change.
So it was a little bit slow. It needs to be fast and loud.
Okay. Future-proofing women for change.
A little bit faster.
Future-proofing women for change.
A little bit louder.
Future-proofing women for change.
Are you smiling?
Yes.
Did you see that? As you said that faster and louder, all of a sudden you find yourself smiling and laughing, and you don't even know why you're laughing, but you are. And it's because just using volume and rate or pace, so how fast or slow you speak, how loud or soft you speak, you were able to generate excitement. Ladies, when you want to bring excitement to the conversation, you actually want to pick up the pace, you want to speak faster, and you want to pick up the volume, you want to speak louder. And that's how you achieve excitement, literally. That's how you achieve excitement in your voice. Let's go to the next one. Unati, if you can be with us, I'm going to ask you to reduce your volume big time. So you need to say it very soft, but you're still going to say it very fast. So soft volume, but very fast in terms of the rate or the pace. Let's hear you say future-proofing women for change. Go.
Future-proofing women for change.
That was very fast. Fast was good, but it wasn't soft at all. So pick up the pace a little bit faster, but definitely soft, almost to a whisper.
Future-proofing women for change.
Okay, go again. Yes. Again. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there, but it was the future-proofing women for change. Future-proofing women for change. And what you're doing there is really like
voice.
Okay.
I have a big voice naturally, so to try and speak and softly, it's a challenge.
Okay, I'll get you to do the next one. Right? But you did a great job with this one as well. And literally their voice of anticipation actually almost sounds like the voice of the water cooler. It's that water cooler voice. It's like, Like people are saying something and you're going, I wonder what they're saying. And so when you want to create anticipation in your presentations, literally just speak a little bit fast, but reduce the volume substantially. And then, of course, let's get you to do this one, get Unati with the big voice. Ne? I want you to say it really loud and really slow. Really loud, really slow, future-proofing women for change.
Future-proofing women for change.
Except you didn't say it loudly now.
Didn't I?
It's got to be very loud. Remember, you've got to exaggerate it. Let's hear you, slow and loud.
Future-proofing women for change.
Wonderful. And so we call this the voice of authority. When you want to be an authority on something, sometimes what you do is you just pick up the volume and you say it really slow. I always say here, channel the energy of Julius Malema. When Julius speaks, everybody hears. Julius slows it down. Julius Malema, for those who don't know, is a South African politician, and he's very interesting. He is an authority. You don't make a mistake. You know, he really is deliberate with every word. He slows it down, he picks up the volume that conveys a sense of authority. And then, of course, finally, let's go to no, just say it in a normal voice. Future-proofing women for change.
Future-proofing women for change.
And so, no, we call it the authentic voice. All of us have an authentic voice, ladies. All of us have got kind of the comfortable everyday voice that we use. And that's what you want to bring to your presentations. But you don't want your presentations to become monotonous where people zone out and we don't hear you. And so from time to time, you'll go from authenticity to anticipation or to excitement or to authority. That's really how you then bring that wonderful variety to your presentations using the power of your voice, particularly for these social media platforms. I mean, not social media, but for these online presenting platforms. Let's keep it moving. Thank you. Thank you, everyone who participated. And so ultimately, I think what we're saying is that, you know, put all of those things together. And part of what's going to assist you in terms of confidence is your preparation. I say preparation is knowing your subject matter, knowing your audiences, really spending time preparing. Breathe if you feel a little bit nervous to overcome those nerves. Visualize a positive outcome. You know, if you really want to be able to achieve something positive, but preparation is what is going to take you to the next level in terms of your confidence. So invest time and energy really preparing. Let's go to the next slide. And so I'm not going to ask you to do this individual reflection per se. I will ask you just to maybe take a picture of it and just think about, you know, what areas you need to work on as it relates to kind of delivering presentations with confidence. I'm thinking about body language, voice, and ability to handle nerves. And if there are any insights that came to you, just for you to be mindful of that. But I won't give you the time to do that now. I am going to move to close the session. Just spend a bit of time doing that reflection for yourself at some point. Thank you. Let's keep it moving. And finally, ladies, I think for me, just as we wrap it up, we say, you know, you want to be heard because you have something of value to contribute. When we're talking about future-proofing women for change, we're saying that we've really got to become mindful about becoming powerful communicators. The person who stands up in a room and is able to communicate effectively is seen by those around them as a leader. So as we step into our leadership, let's really be mindful about creating presentations that are clear, where you're clear about why you are standing up to, you know, to present in the first place, and then employing those 4 components of persuasion as we win people over and influence as leaders. Let's be mindful about how we can get to the point. The reality is that we're dealing with, you know, challenges around time and concentration spans and all sorts of things. And so how do we use the Mentor Pyramid principle to connect with our audiences from the get-go, structuring those presentations with care, as well as incorporating stories, the stories of the experiences that we're having, because we know that stories connect. We know that stories stay with people. People can remember stories. And then finally, to say you want to be able to stand up and to present with confidence. How do you become somebody who's aware of their body language and who uses that intentionally and strategically to build that rapport with your audiences and to send the message that you know your story, you know that you have value to contribute, using your body language and incorporating some of that wonderful voice, playing that instrument that is your voice. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful spending time with you. I really hope that this has been valuable for you, and that you can take some of these and really apply them practically into all of the work that you're doing. Whether you're a business, an entrepreneur, whether you're a professional delivering presentations, to high stake stakeholders, and that you just have fun doing it. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. And back to the team at Hyber. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Zoya, for that even wonder just said here in the comments. Thank you for a thought-provocative masterclass, Zoya. And we just want to say here at Hyber, happy Women's Month to all the women. We thank you as well for the men that are allies as we celebrate and as we champion the work of women. And so this is the end of Nsipe as well, saying thank you, Zoya, and to the Hyber team. And so we've got masterclasses. If you haven't registered for other masterclasses, we've got masterclasses right throughout the day. And so you can, I will share the screen now so that you can see the next class. So we've got the next session that will start at 11 o'clock. And we've got workshops as well next week. So every Wednesday, right throughout August, we are hosting sessions. And so we also just want you to feel free to register for the other masterclasses. And we also want to say special thanks to Zoya and to Zoya Speaks, for spending this morning with us. She's a mom, I know that her schedule is really busy. Had to ask her at least a month in advance just to make sure that she's with us today. And we really appreciate the work that you're doing for women. And yes, and this is on YouTube. So please feel free at any point in time. You can watch. You can also, also share with your friends to watch as well. And it's under Hyber Southern Africa on our YouTube. And then we'll also just try to share the slides and the links with the email addresses that you use to register. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mish. Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks, Sandra. Thank you, everyone. And a big round of applause for Zoya, for those who can come on. And if possible, can we also take a picture? If you can, we would love to take a picture.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mish, we can stop the YouTube